Private Sullivan! Code 16! It's happening. It's even worse than I imagined, Private.
Sir, yes, sir.
The social justice disease has plagued half the globe, and it's become a leviathan greater than we could have ever imagined.
Sir, yes, sir. Thank Jesus. We could write it out. This is 30-day food supply for preparewithcrowder.com. $99. Shipped free, sir.
That is true. Thank the Lord above for preparewithcrowder.com. 30 days seems about the right amount of time we need to ride this out. The good thing about the social justice disease, Private, is that it's a very temporary phase.
Sir, yes, sir.
You, feeling okay, Private?
Sir, yes, sir.
You sure about that, Sullivan?
Sir, yes, sir.
Private Sullivan, hearing that disgraceful social justice disease into my bomb shelter!
Sir, no, sir!
You haven't been hanging out in any slam, poetry nights, or single organ coffee shops against my orders, have you?
Sir, no, sir! But I'm pretty sure systemic racism is still inherent in the system, sir. And jogging is black! Oh, no!
Preparewithcrowder.com or call 888-411-5153. 30-day food supply kit, $99 shipped free!
They have pudding!
That's the ancient art of kata. We've been learning about that this week. It comes from a culture that hasn't offered us much else. Japanese, sushi, and kata. Thank you very much. Producing with me in video studio, as always, is Jared, who is not gay. Follow him on Twitter at NotGayJared. Me at Crowder. If I fulfill my legal obligations, draw your own conclusions. Good.
We good, not gay at all.
Not
Another day, not gay
at all, legally. Hey, there's at G. Morgan Jr. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Howdy.
Big show today.
Yes, indeed.
Huge show today. For those, I know we say it every time, but it's always a big show. I always feel
Sometimes
like it's a
we're
big
not
show.
lying.
Sometimes we're not lying. So today we will have Mark Duplass, of noted fame from the show The League, but also independent film director, filmmaker, writer, actor. And then I believe the greatest fighter to have ever lived, George Rush St. Pierre.
Yes.
Will be on. Yeah.
Yes.
Woo. George St. Pierre will be on. The real George St. Pierre. I know people think, are you just going to do an impression? No, George St. Pierre will be on, and we will be taking some fan questions. So you can tweet me at SCrowder.
Yeah.
And we'll have at JG Tremblay, Jean-Guy Tremblay, obviously a huge Rush fan.
Yeah.
We'll have him on. We'll check in with him later for some questions. Also, huge video package we have today. We usually do these on Mondays, but Women's March went on yesterday. It was supposed to be news, and everyone forgot about it. But
The women's strike.
we didn't. That's why there was no show yesterday, because we decided to join the strike, and the story was that there really was a non-story. Kind of like Jared with the Fight for 15. It's BS, but a lot of craziness. So we were going to have that at the end of this segment, the women's strike. Was it Women's Day Without Women's strike?
Day without women's.
So we have a big video package on that. Looking forward to that, Gerald?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you were the only one who didn't go there.
No, I mean, yeah.
You had to work.
I had to work.
We all had to work.
Would have fired myself
You
if
know
I
what
had
happened
striked.
that day? Here's the thing. What actually happened yesterday, I told my wife, a Day Without Women strike. I was really busy because we were going on location. We were all going out to shoot these packages. And I said, I'm really busy. Hey, sweetheart, can you make me breakfast? She did. And then I took out the trash because we have an adult relationship.
Look at that. Look at that.
That's how we celebrated.
Equitable.
By being adults. And we might have even enjoyed some intercourse later.
Oh, whoa, hey.
We didn't.
Yes.
It was a late day. We got back late. She was asleep. Well, Samantha B's in hot water. Because recently she hasn't been checking her sources. We've been talking about this with what's his name? The pool boy, Chris Cuomo.
Yeah.
Samantha B. We'll talk about Colbert, but Samantha B. is one of the worst offenders. She has not been checking her sources, and in doing a package making fun of conservatives, she made fun of this kid with referring to it as Nazi hair. Turns out the kid has cancer.
Oh, gosh. That's tough.
Yeah. Now, this is not the first time she's done it, granted. Samantha Bee has run into these problems before. She accused this guy of being a noted neo-Nazi skinhead. And Sam B, you should know better.
Ouch.
Next
In contrast, that's the funniest thing that's happened on our show in probably forever.
It is the funniest thing that's happened on our show in a while.
accidental.
You know, here's the thing. We wouldn't care. Why would you make fun of kids? We're not making fun of kids with progeria. That's not the genre of that joke. That's Samantha Bee is a perpetually offended feminist, and she doesn't even realize that she's going to be cannibalized by this environment of social justice workers. I guess they're not really workers. They don't work.
No.
Social justice warriors that she's created.
It's inaccurate, Stephen.
Yeah.
Joke. It's a long title for that genre of humor. But speaking of Samantha Bee and unfunny, she released this video in solidarity where there's a world with women with. I don't know if I've had a mealy mouth. I sound like that Fat Albert. Put on the hat, the purple hat. Is it the purple hat with the mush mouth?
Yeah.
You may be a little
I don't know.
infected by some of the feminism
I
from
might be
yesterday.
infected by some. It's gone down into my. Is it Mushmouth, the guy with the purple hat?
I never watched it.
I don't know. Bill Cosby creation. Either way, someone's getting raped. So Samantha Bee did this video in solidarity for Day Without Women.
Hi, welcome to Full Frontal. I'm Samantha Bee. Only a week after the All-Star break, LeBron and company let the Celtics one game closer to first place in the East. They're losing their lead faster than people in the Trump administration are losing their jobs for talking. I'm sorry, is that a sports joke? Who wrote that?
I did. It's good, right?
No. Where's the audience?
Your audience coordinator's out today, so.
Oh, and about half the writers and producers, all your researchers, the digital department, half the control room.
Wardrobe, hair, makeup, clearly.
Hey.
And your stage manager.
Hashtag feminism.
I'm sorry. Are you saying it's the Day Without a Woman and nobody told me?
Yeah, but I think the show's going really well.
I am out of here.
It's like the unfunny soccer mom who shows up in the old Dodge Caravan and she's like, kids, I'm funny, right? I'm the funny mom, but we got some ice cream. And you're like, no, stop it.
I brought vanilla Coke.
Stop it, Sandra. Hey, have you heard? Dr. Pepper's got a new flavor. It's cherry. It is so painful.
It's really, she couldn't even get the jacket off in one tear.
No.
Like, that's what really stuck out to me.
And the worst part is it's not really all that less funny than her normal show.
$10 says, a woman wrote that bit.
I know.
Another 5 says it was Samantha Bee.
If there had just been one less woman.
There has to be some truth to humor, right?
Yes.
There has to be some truth to humor. Now, Jon Stewart, funny. Stephen Colbert, when he was in character, funny. Bill Maher can be funny. But when your joke is, oh, we lost the whole technical crew, well, you can't do that and then bitch about how there are less than 2% women in technical jobs in the entertainment industry. We all know that most camera operators, most editors are men. You can't joke about how unfair it is with too many male writers and then act as though all the writing coming from men suck. By the way, they're all gay beta men, it seems like, too.
Purely anecdotal, but every woman I went to film school with, they all sucked. It's just horrible. Sorry if you're out there looking at this.
I fancy myself a
You were
real.
terrible.
I'm a trailblazer. Oh, really? Well, what's your submission? Me cutting myself to Radiohead? Oh, you're breaking some new ground there, aren't you, Copernicus? Every single film expo.
Nice.
Police. Oh, creative. Look at me. I cut so that I feel.
This is a really dark show.
Where'd you go?
Can we fit in a few more Holocaust
Female
jokes?
artists. No, we don't have the Holocaust jokes yet. We'll get to them. Okay. Speaking of international incidents, Anne Hathaway spoke in front of the UN because of
Stop there.
hashtag internet. No, you have to let me get through this bit. He's a Hatha-hater. Because of hashtag International Day Without Women, hashtag International Women's Day, Anne Hathaway decided to sit before the UN, stand before the UN, I guess, depending on what she has on her feet. I heard she just gave birth. So she decided to stand before the UN and coach them on what we need to do as a society. Let's watch.
1 in 4 American women go back to work 2 weeks after giving birth because they can't afford to take off any more time than that. That's 25% of American women.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. What's the issue? As opposed to the how many weeks that men get off when we take part in giving birth to a baby too. Often when you get home from the hospital, men are often helping to tend to the baby bottles. Unless you have a deadbeat husband because he's, I don't know, possibly a beta leftist who writes for Samantha Bee. Let's see, next clip. Maybe she gets a point here.
Equally disturbing, women who can afford to take a full 12 weeks often don't, because it'll mean incurring a motherhood penalty, meaning they will be perceived as less dedicated to their job and will be passed over for promotions and other career advancement.
Yes. Yes.
As anybody who takes 3 months off would.
I mean, it's because they're discriminating against because of having a baby. No. It's because you do a job, right? Yes, you're doing a job, and we're paying you, right? Because we need you to do that job, right? Then there were 3 months where you didn't do that job. Sexist? No, I don't think you're following me. Okay. You were paid for a job, yes, which you do, every single day. Got it. Then you stopped for 90 days. Sexist bastard. I don't think we're reading each other.
You missed the entire third quarter.
I get it. We want to support mothers, but this is when they talk about the pay gap, you're off for 3 months. No man expects to take off 3 months. I get it. You didn't choose biology, but you chose to have a baby. Them's the breaks.
Liberals seem to be really upset with reality, much more so than policies even.
Yes.
I know.
Just reality is troublesome.
Well, okay,
problematic.
so she's making these points, and it culminates into her greater point, which I think I'm sure goes somewhere productive.
Whether or not you have or want kids, you will benefit by living in a more evolved world with policies not based on gender.
What? Is it me? What? I was watching this clip today. What? So, first 2 points. Can you believe that we have to do these things because we're women? Yes. And the law doesn't recognize us exclusively giving us benefits while not understanding biological mechanisms that are outside of our choice by law according to gender. Yes. We cannot make laws according to gender. Okay, please excuse myself while I put a revolver in my mouth. And this is what passes for brilliance among... Like, here's the thing. No one... Did anyone help? Like, did she run her speech by anyone? I mean, like, before we do this show, like, does this idea work? You know what? That might contradict this point. Or you know what? That might not be intellectually consistent. She sat there, and she probably sat in front of her, I don't know, husband, live-in boyfriend, whatever it is, and said, okay, I'm going to go over my notes. Yes, sweetie. I am going to talk about how women exclusively need more time off and maternity leave because of feminism. Yes. And then I'm going to bitch about rules based on gender.
It just seems like
no one?
It just seems like just now, as long as you have a pair of knockers and a loud mouth, maybe some little bit of celebrity status, you can get in front of the UN.
Looks like he was doing some transgender duck motion. Like Howard the Duck.
This is feminist kata.
Oh, gosh, Anne Hathaway. All right, okay, moving along the trail here because we have a lot of guests to get to in Jean-Guy. Stephen Colbert. I think Stephen Colbert was very funny at SNL, but it might be time it might be time to put that to rest because it's been a while. And he was out there talking about Republican care, Trump care, as they're calling it. A few things stood out at me. Let's go to clip 1.
There are some things they're keeping from Obamacare. Kids staying on their parents' health care until they're 26.
Like they're wildly cheering for kids, 25-year-old kids on their parents' health care. They're cheering about that. Like these are grown adults. These should be 18, then 21, then 22, I think, with health care. And kids they're cheering 25-year-old. But Jared,
what's
happening?
I'm just
what's going on here?
Well, I got things to do, things to go, bigger plans.
What are you talking about? Where are you going?
I'm gonna go back to. I got some health insurance to get to.
What do you mean? Why?
I only work for health insurance, and
hold on a second. You leave here, you're going to be fired.
26.
Yeah, no, you're saying the law is up until 26.
Yeah, we're good.
No, up until 20. You've already turned. You're 26.
Everything.
It's up until 26.
Yeah.
No, you're 26. The law is 25. Once you turn 26, it doesn't apply anymore. You can't get insurance on your parents' plan if you're 26. It's up until, not including 26.
Shit.
You do know you're still fired, right?
Yes.
So here's something else that occurred with Stephen Colbert. This is what we have to work against. Stephen Colbert was talking about the bill. Well, everyone praised, yes, 20. We don't want people to be adults until they're 26. Second adolescence. He talked about the rich getting a tax break from the new Trump care. But here, there was something that stood out. See if you notice it right here. Let's roll the clip.
Well, good news, because the plan includes a tax break for insurance company executives making over $500,000 a year.
Okay, so did you notice anything?
Yeah.
This is CBS. BuzzFeed was his source. BuzzFeed was his source. They want to bitch about people online and fake news and conservatives and misinformation. You're using BuzzFeed as a source. And if you watch Samantha Bee, it is across the board. Their sources are almost exclusively Vox, BuzzFeed, Salon, Daily Kos, Slate, and what's the other one? Daily Beast and Vice. Those are all their sources, unironically using BuzzFeed. This is a grown-ass male using BuzzFeed as a news source. So if you wonder why they're in an echo chamber or they don't necessarily understand how we could possibly think differently,
it's because BuzzFeed's its homepage.
No one in the writer's room said, okay, you know what, that's good. Yeah, but Colbert, hey, listen, let's just find that from American Enterprise Institute or something. Let's find that stat from a think tank. We read it at BuzzFeed, but let's at least grab a source that doesn't look like BuzzFeed. We even do that. If we have a story and it comes to us from some super ultra conservative site,
you're like,
you know what? There's probably a liberal site that has it, so we can use it as a source. That way, it's at least corroborated by someone who isn't just cheerleading. Okay, attitude shift. We're talking about this. You know, there's been, I don't know if you've noticed this, there's been a major attitude shift with Donald Trump being president. Now, not a lot of policy has come into play yet, but job growth in February. This is huge. Yeah. According to the ADP, over 300,000 jobs were added in February. A lot of those manufacturing jobs. These are private sector jobs, by the way. I should say private sector jobs, over 300,000.
There's an idea.
Yeah, there's an idea. And by the way, it was way beyond their forecast. That's important because numbers without context, they were projecting a really good month would be 160,000. And they hit 300,000. That's the second month of the guy being president. So I know a lot of people have been tweeting this out there in contrast from NPR, this Twitter image here, the graph of Barack Obama's job growth, right? You see it right there. You can't see it probably on your screen if it's small. Do you notice something there, Joe? The number goes from 100,000 up to 400,000. Okay?
Yeah.
Barack Obama never in his entire presidency had a 400,000 private sector job growth month. So the fact that they make that as a chart, it's like me saying, you know what? It goes from year to year. I've made anywhere from $1,000 a year to $15 million. It's somewhere in here. It's somewhere in there. Matter of fact, I was really hard pressed to find any months over 300,000. Depending on the sources that you get. His average for his entire presidency was 109,000 jobs added per month, which was lower than population growth.
Yeah.
So that's important to note. That these. But I just thought isn't that just so tricky? 100,000 to 400,000. Why did you choose 400,000? Well, we
don't want to set the ceiling too high.
They put it there so that people think he ever created 400,000 jobs in a month. It never happened.
Well, and he also, when he took over the economy, it was terrible, right? So you should have gigantic growth. Right? You started off at the basement. It should be way uphill from there, right?
Right.
No,
at least be smart, use percentages or something.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
But anyways, that's what people will be sending around. You need to look at population growth. You need to look at job participation rate. It's a little more complicated than that, but it looks really good right now. Not only that, but we have a stock market that's gone up, I think, 15% under Donald Trump.
Yeah.
We were talking about this illegal immigration at the border. See, this is down 40% at the southern border in February. 40% decrease.
Just from somebody standing up saying, no.
Yeah.
That's all it took.
I'm going to go to America. Don't go.
Yeah.
These guys mean what he's saying. He's not going to deport me. He's not going to imprison me. See, he's mean what he's saying. He's mean business. I stay. 40% decrease. That's what we would call statistically notable.
Yes.
There's just an overall, and you can't judge this based on policy. Like I said, as far as policy, Donald Trump's actions have been better than his words. But I do think there's an overall sentiment. If you look at where the job growth occurred in manufacturing and innovation here in the United States, if you look at the stock market, you look at people not flooding across illegally, there's an attitude shift. It's not policy, but I think people are seeing, okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel as far as stifling regulation. Maybe we're going to enter into an era where we'll actually be able to thrive as business creators as opposed to being punished. Do you sense? It's just a sense that I get.
Yeah, there's economic optimism out there right now.
Point.
People don't necessarily know how to put their finger on it yet, but they're optimistic, which means they spend more money, and that trickles down to everybody. So.
Oh, there's that word.
Oh, I love
economics.
it.
People get so mad.
Trickle down.
I don't know if we told the wrong time, but Jean-Guy's trying to call in.
Oh, Jean-Guy's trying to call in?
He's on line 3.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Well, so we have we're going to have Georges St. Pierre on, and we are going to have Jean-Guy on. Jean-Guy, you're there. You excited to talk with Georges St. Pierre here today?
Okay, there. Like the last time you do, okay, I get it, right? You get me on the air excited, and it's you doing an impression, Carlos, not the real GSP, okay?
No.
Not the first
That's
time
not-
I fall for that.
No, that's not the case here today, Jean-Guy. Jared, tell him. We have the real Georges St. Pierre.
It's the real
Jean manager.
It's the real one.
It's the real Georges St. Pierre. We're going to have him on after Mark Duplass
Hey,
today. Yeah,
GSP for real, man?
for real, I swear.
Oh, my God. Man, I can never believe that. The GSP, man, no. My
Okay.
God, I'm going to lose my mind.
I'm regretting
I'm
that.
your biggest fan since
No,
I'm like
we
that.
just-
a
just
little
need to
boy,
calm
you
down.
know, do karate.
He's
I
excited.
always
He's
want to
excited.
be like
Mhm.
GSP.
Yeah, he's excited.
Oh, my God, man. I have so many questions now.
Okay, but he's not on now. It's good. You're going to have you back. You called in early. He's not on now. He's not on. Can you even hear me?
I don't think he can hear you.
Jean-Guy, we need you to calm down. We need you to.
Okay.
No,
like when you
let's
do
cut
it,
it.
you do
We can't
something.
have him on with Georges St. Pierre. He's too big a guest. Cut
Everyone
it. We can't have him on.
Wow. Yeah.
He's
Very
too
excited,
into it.
though. Very excited.
I appreciate his enthusiasm. We cannot have him on with Georges St. Pierre.
No.
Call him during the break. Jared,
Maybe
let's
next-
see if we can call
maybe
him.
next time?
No, not George's first time on the show. Okay, so we have to do this right before then. We will have Mark Duplass and Georges St. Pierre. Let's set this up. We went to the Women's March, the Women's Strike. Now, okay, Jared, what would you say the big takeaway was here to the Women's Strike?
God, is there supposed to be a takeaway?
Well, we went to the Women's March in Austin not long ago.
Yes, the biggest march of all women.
Biggest march of all time. What was remarkable was we went here. There were 2 different campuses. We went, and there were like 3 people. And then
Yeah,
at the,
I think the left just tuckered out.
Yeah, I think the left has tuckered themselves out, and I don't think there's the same kind of Soros funding here.
No.
And we spoke with them. So one thing that was remarkable, no one was on strike, by the way.
No.
Except for us.
Yeah.
No one was on strike. And then they were lucky to get, 50 people at night at a gathering where they were speaking at a town square. This is around Dallas, Texas, and there weren't many marches actually anywhere. There was Washington Square Park. It lasted a very short amount of time. It was not nearly as big as even a Tea Party.
Their whole point seemed to be we can't strike because we need the money. So therefore we need more money at our work so we can strike.
Yes.
About not having more money at work? I don't know.
I want you to pay me more. Okay, good. I'll see you tomorrow. Not exactly.
There's a twist.
And here's the thing: it is remarkable that, well, first off, they wanted to be more inclusive. They didn't like all the pussy hats and stuff, and so it was perfect for Stephanie and Janelle. We sent Stephanie and Janelle in because they all wanted to be trans friendly.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with feminism anymore. It has nothing to do with equal rights. They weren't striking off of work. It was all about. It was organized by the college socialist group.
Mm-hmm.
They were calling each other comrades. They were openly encouraging communism. It was about LGBTQ AIP and unionizing. They said women couldn't make it in this country without capitalism. It had nothing to do with equal rights. It was free abortion and communism, and no one showed up.
And insane training speaker.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll let you watch this for yourself, but if you had to just summarize it, free abortion, free stuff, yay communism, we don't want to work. Enjoy the video. There was the Women's March, then hashtag Day Without Immigrants. Not to be outdone, the feminists came roaring back with hashtag Day Without a Woman on March 8th. It was publicized everywhere, all over media, new media, Facebook, front page of YouTube. After it started taking place, however, there was no mention of it. Thankfully, me and my producer went down to the protest, and what do we find? Well, a very small group of slightly large, nonsensical young women who really just wanted, in the name of equality, everything?
We also do call for full reproductive rights, including completely free access to abortion. These are things that we call for because abortion is not just a woman's issue. Abortion is a trans issue. Abortion is a man's issue. Abortion is an issue.
That's an international issue.
It is.
Demand without apology. No yes. Have the right to legislate against anyone's body and tell them what they can and cannot do with it.
That sounds just like the previous Women's March. So what made this one different?
We're kind of ditching the capitalism, the heteronormativity,
Okay.
the transphobia, the cis-sexism that was so rampant with the Women's March.
Right.
And we're going into something more intersectional, more inclusive.
Okay, that was what I was going to
And
say.
more radical.
The point of capitalism is that there's an exploiting class and an exploited class. So
environmental justice is reproductive justice, and environmental justice is a feminist issue.
But the problem with this, to borrow from a comrade, is that what happens when you break a glass ceiling is it leaves the shards for millions of women that are below to step on.
The truth of the matter is, even when I'm talking right now, this is unpaid labor. It's important to recognize these things.
Sure.
The education that we do and the work that we do is unpaid labor.
It still begs the question, what does any of this have to do with feminism? And as far as event attendance, big swing and a miss.
As revolutionary socialists, who are many of the people organizing this, we're not here to promote cis sexism or heteronormativity with movements, especially if they're about feminism, which is not about biological determinants of anything. The vaginas that you experienced out there.
Yes.
Not only is that image detrimental to people who don't have that anatomy or people who are uncomfortable with their anatomy and don't want that anatomy. It's not inclusive.
It'd be hard to say that about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also pink, and not everybody has pink genitalia.
It's true.
It is, and it was very much just a white women's march.
Okay.
What's happening here is we have a Nazi is supporting what's coming up here.
We have open white supremacists in office now, and truthfully,
Like who?
Steve Bannon.
He's an open white supremacist?
Yeah.
Okay, who's a Nazi? Or...
Bannon.
Oh, okay, we're back to, okay.
Bannon.
So is there a specific reason for the red?
So the red, actually historically, Women's Day was a day of national action for socialists.
Sure.
And so we decided to wear red in solidarity with that.
Is red like an official Socialist Party color? Or is it?
It's kind of close. I
Okay.
mean,
So kind of like the communism sort of red?
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so an
I think
offshoot.
those ties.
Are you on strike from teaching today?
Actually, I'm not a teacher this semester, but I am definitely striking from helping other faculty at a women's university.
Okay.
Who should probably be, striking. And I kick ass, thank you very much. Because I'm a pirate and we do things much differently.
Okay, but you're not teaching this semester.
I am not.
And if you were, you wouldn't be today.
You better believe it. As a matter-
Well, this event on this campus was very small and somewhat depressing, but we were assured that there would be hundreds later on at the town square, and the next campus over would be much bigger with a lot more going on, so we decided to check that out. So,
would you mind pointing that away from us until we know what's going on here?
sure. You can point that.
Like in that direction?
He can, sure. You can point in that
turn it
direction.
off and then point it in that direction?
Well, we're just doing he's
Wait,
following
I don't know
us.
I asked him not to point it at me.
No, he's pointing it at me, though. We're doing a documentary.
I don't know why this is so contentious. Point that in the other direction and talk to us, and then we can maybe
Sure.
agree to be on it. But that's not what you're doing. And what you're doing is actually really alienating everyone here who may not want to be on the video right now.
I don't see anyone else here is really upset. You don't need it, and if you don't want to speak with us
So-
because you're uncomfortable, that's okay.
No, I was.
No, I get it. I get it. You're
so-
uncomfortable.
So
Okay.
we're
Don't film
disengaging
them.
now. We're disengaging.
Okay, that's fine. You can
We asked you not to. We wanted to.
He's filming me. That's
But-
okay.
Okay.
Sure, that's fine.
Also, just asked you not to point the camera at us, but you keep doing it.
I'm sorry, you're uncomfortable. That's okay. Hey, listen, it's not new to us. It's not new to us with you being uncomfortable with us. That's okay. We understand it. We respect it. You need your space.
Oh, skunked again. That only left us with the march on down to town square. It was time to let their freak flag fly, all 14 of them.
That was a white supremacist.
That was a who?
That was a white supremacist.
No, he just told me he liked my red outfit.
Oh, he was probably being an asshole. They're all fucking Trump supporters.
He's a white supremacist?
Yeah.
So someone recognized you?
Yeah,
And
they
then
just-
Kroger got upset?
Yeah, they were just like, you need to go to the back.
Oh, okay.
That type of shit.
Oh, what's the killing of black trans women?
So the majority of violence committed against like trans people and trans women particularly are targeted for a lot like in terms of police violence and just intimate partner violence, and a lot of them, I don't want to say a lot of them, but there's a significant part of the trans population that are sex workers, because they're forced into sex work oftentimes because they don't have any avenues for employment because of employment discrimination.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, what?
So one of those things that's kind of I think we've all had that.
Yeah, so
Oftentimes they're targeted for with violence, and often there's a significant
There's some of them as bigoted assholes. Like, that's why you need a lawyer to do anything
Right.
that changes.
Yeah. Well, like, what are they doing? Like,
So like trans women of color and particularly like black trans women are often the ones that are like most like likely to be targeted for like violence like this and like murders and things.
Okay.
And so it's like a particular issue. Like I think 7 trans people have been murdered so far this year. Like, and the trans population is not big.
There's a huge wage gap, not only from white women to white males, but also like Asian American women's, Hispanic women's.
Right.
They're all getting paid 75 cents, 65 cents, 45 cents is what I think Hispanic women are being paid to the dollar.
4 of them were trans women, like were black trans women specifically. So like it like definitely like just like proportionally speaking, like
Sure.
it's like a significant issue. Like it's just like it's like an intersection of like white supremacy and like transphobia.
That's unbelievable. So 7 murders, gosh. So we didn't get to stay for the whole thing because, well, it was a little long and boring. There's nothing interesting about that. The most telling thing to me, though, was it had literally, like, nothing to do with feminism.
Very little.
Comrades, socialists, communism, abortion on demand, period.
Every day, period. No questions.
Period. And unions. But very little to do with women's rights. Also, very few people. And that one dog, I think, was a white supremacist. I saw it barking at one of the colored folk.
He was. It was. It's disgusting, frankly.
So it didn't really have a whole lot to do with feminism. And we'll come back and we'll talk about it again another time. Hi. Well, that was a crock of shit, wasn't it?
An ode to the homemaker. Though ladies' work is often thought to be less meaningful, less fulfilling, and less productive than that of her hard-working male counterpart, the weaker sex earns her keep to the daily task of food preparation. Ensuring your hubby is fully satisfied is a daunting task, but how does she do it? What's her secret to ensuring 100% satisfaction morning, noon, and night? The LottoWithCrowder.com/mugclub. The little lady's favorite helper for only $99 annually, $69 for students and veterans. The Mug Club is clinically proven to enhance the aroma and flavor of all beverages and soups by 64%. No more fat lips for you. You too can enjoy these clinically proven results, as well as daily programming at LouderWithCrowder.com/mugclub. No more fat lips.
Hello there. How often do you hear me do live reads? Take a guess, Jerry.
I'm going to go with once a week now.
Once a week. There might be twice a week, though, actually, because of a couple special events. But you've seen the commercials. Listen, we appreciate that. The outpour has been amazing. So we've got 1 month going right now. Limited supply with preparewithcrowder.com. Listen, we've talked about this. I'm not a doomsday guy or a prepper, but having gone through the Montreal ice storms, my brother with the Los Angeles riots, we went weeks without even access to any kind of food, water. I just always have enough water to last through a month in case of an emergency. And I'm not going to buy a bunch of canned beans or do canning at home. My wife likes to pickle things. But preparewithcrowder.com right now. We have a special going, $99, 30 full days. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner for $99 shipped to your door free in its own container. You can't create it any cheaper. And it's really easy. It's just good to have. Put it in your trunk or just put it somewhere in your cupboard. You have peace of mind. And actually, I will say, we are out of the oatmeal.
Yeah, the oatmeal.
Because it tastes better than the store-bought oatmeal. Sure. And we realized there was less sugar. And their pudding's really good, too. So you don't do what I do. Don't get into it.
I love the pudding.
Yeah, the pudding. You get the pudding, pop, the coffee, and the rake. So that's not what they want in this commercial.
No.
Preparewithcrowder.com, serious commercial. Like I said, not a prepper, but any kind of a natural disaster, something can strike. It just helps to be prepared, and you're not going to find a better deal. And they're a sponsor. Listen, so if you've ever been looking to just kind of be prepared, have peace of mind, appreciate it if you support our sponsors. That's preparewithcrowder.com. If you're old school, you can call 888-411-5153. But really, most of you go to preparewithcrowder.com. Thank you so much. All right, very glad to have our next guest on. I am here's the deal. We disagree politically. This is how we met via Twitter, but very respectfully. Longtime fan, actually. I've been following him since my brother introduced me to the puffy chair. He's an Austinite, and of course, he has been on the show The League, where actually character there, John Lajoie, his brother, was in my graduating class. We were very close friends. Mark Duplass, thank you for being on, sir.
Thank you for the invite and letting one of the infidels come onto your show. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. and represent my snowflake libtard tribe.
Yes, well, libtard is not a term that we use here. We actually have a complete and total ban on that at the show because it's just comedically lazy. But I understand. You probably get a lot of that in your timeline. Listen, I appreciate you coming on the show. Honestly, we talked about this. We've had a really tough time booking leftist guests or liberal guests, whatever term you want to use. And we've had a couple that are great. They always come back. But last time, Michael Ian Black got a little heated. By a little heated, I mean screamed at me and then apologized, and we'll have him back on soon. So anytime we can have a discussion, I'm happy to do so. And I do appreciate, anyone who gets in and is willing to have the discussion. So for those who don't know, this started, you were on Twitter and you said, listen, I feel like I've had a grasp. I'm paraphrasing here. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I've had a grasp on sort of what conservatives wanted, but I don't understand anyone who really is on board with Trump at this point. Was that about the sentiment?
Yeah, I think, I grew up in the South. I was raised as a Republican. I went to Catholic schools. I've been around it. Reagan was a god in our house, and we were a believer in trickle-down economics and all of that. And I actually also feel like I can understand those who, felt like they kind of held their nose and voted for Trump because they felt like, this is the best option for me. It represents my party. And look,
that was almost everyone here.
Yeah, I wasn't on fire for Hillary, I'll be honest with you, but I was like, all right, there's some Supreme Court appointees coming up. I kind of want to make sure my party's represented. I get all that stuff. I'm pretty pragmatic when it comes to that.
Sure.
The thing that it is mystifying me a little bit, and that I'm really genuinely reaching out for, even though it occasionally sounds snarky on Twitter, and I try not to, is if you're on fire for Trump, if you love this guy, and if you believe in him, I want to hear from you because that is hard for me to understand.
Right. No, and I think it was genuine, and that's why I responded. And hopefully people understood that there wasn't snark. It was mutual respect there. I wouldn't say I'm on fire for Trump, but certainly a huge portion of this audience is. So if you really are trying to understand, let me give you kind of the first example. And you work in the entertainment industry, and like you said, if you were raised in the South, you kind of know the other side of that coin. Would it stand to reason, or when you think about it, the left has behaved so poorly, so badly. They're so out of line.
Just sorry to interrupt, but would you say from a political perspective up top or the fan base, the constituency?
I would say culturally right now, sort of this cultural leftism and politically. I would really put in the entertainment industry in particular, and then, of course, how people use the term mainstream media, though what is mainstream media anymore? They behaved so badly. Everything was an attack on conservatives for a long time, with whether it was the Tea Party's racist, are there any violent acts? They completely ignored the 500 felonies at Occupy Wall Street. They ignore all the violent protests that occurred at inauguration, the feminist protests, the LGBTQ AAIP, the acronym keeps extending. And they've, the freaking out at the election, the we need to impeach this guy when they don't get their way. They have behaved so poorly that people have just rejected that leftist culture, and they see Donald Trump as the pendulum swinging the other way. I see most people who voted for him feeling that way, and a lot of people who held their nose. That is kind of the saving grace here. We're not happy about the healthcare bill, but when people freak out and call the using the racist, xenophobic, sexist, transphobic card now is kind of done being played forever, and a lot of people are happy with that.
Why is that done being played forever? I don't understand that.
Because they accused everyone of being racist, sexist, xenophobic. Let me give you an example.
Your argument is that the left has cried wolf for so long that you can't hear it anymore.
Yeah, well, they're saying it about Donald Trump, but it's like, Donald Trump's racist. Yeah, but you said it about Mitt Romney. And you said, everyone now, they retroactively say, let me ask you this, genuinely, because you said you had kind of a handle on conservatives and what you think they want. If we were to go back, what were you saying about Mitt Romney or McCain? Were you saying, hey, I disagree with them, but they're really good guys? Or were you maybe saying, hey, they don't care about the poor? Hey, these are white privileged people? Because that was always the attack on every mainstream Republican, and they got sick of it.
Yeah, I was not as vehemently opposed to those two guys as I was to Trump, and a lot of it is, admittedly, and I think you feel this, is less about policy and more about personal behavior and being a symbol for our youth. I have two daughters who are 9 and 4 years old, and they watch these things with me. And And it's important to me, even though it doesn't always directly affect policy on a microcosmic level.
Sure.
But that person represent moral righteousness and be a good person who I believe at their core has the best interests of everyone in this country at their heart. And I could be totally wrong and I could be totally uneducated, but when I feel Donald Trump and when I look at him, I see a very astute businessman and a really smart guy who learned that there was a section of America who felt left behind, and he targeted them and he campaigned correctly to them and he won that election. But I don't feel like this has been his passion his whole life, is to represent the underrepresented in America. And it really comes down to that old adage of like, when I went to college, everybody said, take the teacher, don't take the class. Don't worry about the microcosm of the agenda. Take the right person, because at the end of the day, they're going to learn how to extrapolate all these small things and set this wonderful example of how to teach you how to be a beautiful, giving, loving, smart human being in the world. And I really, I take issue. I like, George Bush in the 80s, like, I think that guy's a good guy. And I think his intentions were pure. And I think he really wanted to help. And I didn't agree with all of his methods. Stay in office. That's just a disagreement. That's a normal thing.
Right.
The moral compass of Donald Trump bothers me to my core.
Right. I can understand that, and I can understand, I do find it interesting that this is kind of the election. I think if we were to agree on common ground, this is the first time where the Democratic platform has ever argued that character matters. They didn't with Bill Clinton. They didn't for a long time. They didn't when Barack Obama wasn't transparent with the passing of the Obamacare bill. We all knew he was the least transparent president ever when we're talking about character issues. And so now, again, that's sort of the political football. I don't disagree with you. Listen, I don't disagree that a guy on wife number 3 and some of the things that he said would be indicative of someone who's a narcissist. I do think, however, the fundamental difference is conservatives, right-wingers, whatever you want to call it, and classical liberals look at policy. And the policy from Donald Trump has been a lot better than his words. And I do think with what you were just sort of talking about, that's what lends itself so much to leftists attributing motive. And I know we're just saying in this case it's Donald Trump, but that has been the political campaign, the political strategy for the left for decades. It's always been racist. It's always been conservatives don't care about the poor. They're doing it now. Republicans don't care about old people with Medicaid. Well, no, that's not true. We're not cutting programs. We believe in fixing programs, right? If you cut something from the menu because nobody's buying it, and then you're replacing with something better, by definition, you're cutting it, but you're trying to fix something. And I do think that is kind of, to answer your first question, why a lot of people are seeing Donald Trump as a middle finger for too many years, and there's only so much time where you can assume somebody's motive in their heart, and they say, you know what, that's not true, and I'm done apologizing. I think if Ted Cruz would have won this presidency, it would have been the exact same attacks: racist, anti-immigrant, sexist. Because Donald Trump, for example, I don't think he's a sexist in the sense that I don't think he hates women. I think he's a poor example. But when people say the reversal of the Mexico City policy...
Do you think that being a sexist is just hating women? Do you think that's the only definition of sexism?
I don't think he discriminates against people because of their sex, put it that way, in the classical sense.
Okay. All right.
But for example, when people say he's sexist, okay, grab him by the pussy. People will agree that's a sexist comment. But then they say it's sexist for him to reverse Barack Obama's reversal of the Mexico City policy. Most Americans will say, hold on a second. He just doesn't believe that American taxpayer dollars should fund abortions overseas. I don't think that's sexist. And the entire left has accused that of being sexist, and so you create more conservatives. Does that maybe stand to reason? I'm just trying to answer the question.
I understand what you're saying there. I wouldn't say that the second argument you've talked about with overseas abortions is the predominant one, that people take issue with Donald Trump's sexism. I think things more like...
No, but they accuse it of being sexist is my point. So when you accuse that of being sexist and everyone knows it's clearly not... people go, wait, hold on a second. Maybe the accusation of sexism is just for political...
grab the pussy comment. I don't think it's about the overseas stuff as much. I think that's what you're hearing as the accusation. And look,
no, it was trending everywhere that whole day. The whole day it happened for weeks. And we were at the Women's March yesterday. It was abortion on demand, period. And until we are out from under the thumb of patriarchy and our abortions are taxpayer funded. I mean, this is their mainstream policy agenda. And so when they say it's sexist to disagree with that, people say, you know what? Okay, I guess I'm sexist.
How do you, just out of curiosity, just to get back to your character comments, you mentioned that you have some character issues with Barack Obama with transparency. How do you feel, just from a personal opinion, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to,
Sure.
the character of Barack Obama compares to the character of Donald Trump?
I think it's a valid question, and we've talked about it on air. I think there's no question that Barack Obama was a fantastic, or as far as we know, obviously, listen, as far as we know as the public, fantastic father and a good husband. Certainly a better husband than Donald Trump. I mean, marriage number one. His wife adores him, seems to have well-adjusted kids. I do think Donald Trump seems to have been a good father. His kids seem like good people. But I certainly would say, hey, I can see the argument that Barack Obama has a leg up in his familial life.
That's immediate family stuff. But in terms of global community and inclusiveness and willingness to, see that every person has value and not favor one person over the other, how do you feel like he compares to Trump, or those two compare?
Well, I think that's a loaded question, because inclusiveness is not inherently a moral value. Certainly not if you're including things that shouldn't be included in a civilized society. For example, countries at a table who want to implement Sharia law, or people who want to wipe Israel off the face of the map, or people who demand that American taxpayers fund abortion overseas. I have no problem excluding them. I don't believe in globalist policies. I do believe in the idea of putting your country and your nation first, especially when we're spending more abroad than any nation, and they don't care anyway. I think that's separate from a personal moral issue, but I would definitely concede territory that Barack Obama seems, even though he's ideologically misguided, seems in his personal life to have conducted himself in a moral way, college and onward.
Does it ever occur to you, and this is where I get less educated, and I literally genuinely am asking, because I think that you spend your all day talking, learning about politics, and you probably know a lot more than I do on just a fact-to-fact basis. The America First ideology that just says, I've been left behind. If we're helping too many of these other people, it's going to take away resources from us. Does that ever bother you on a personal level and from a Christian level of the message of, I was raised Catholic. That's just like the school. I went to a Jesuit school that said men for others, and it was drilled into me. And that's not just people who look like you and feel like you, but others is global. Others is everything. How do you feel about that as it applies to America First? Does that rub you ever?
Well, I wouldn't go with a soundbite America First policy, right? Because I disagree with the protectionist policies there, the tariffs, the idea. For me, I don't believe in America First if you have to pay a union worker 3 or 4 times the amount for lower quality. So in that sense, I'm a free enterprise, much more of a libertarian. But I don't think there's anything morally wrong with that or unchristian about that. Certainly when you look at, and plus, by the way, it doesn't matter what we do. This is where the politicization comes in. Do you know who's done more for AIDS in Africa than all other presidents combined, and it's not even close? It was George W. Bush. And everyone accused him of being racist, and George Bush does not care about black people. And, there's this idea, too, and you see it all over Twitter from elite leftists, America is an imperialistic nation. And then they say, we're spending so much money. Well, hold on a second. We're either an imperialistic nation or we're spending too much money abroad. One could almost say that an empire is profitable, not costly. We are the only country who uses our military as the greatest peacekeeping force that's ever existed, attempt to establish stable democracies, whether it occurs or not, and we ask for nothing more than the land in which to bury our dead who provided them that opportunity. I don't think that it's our job, certainly when it's a thankless job, to be the world's greatest charity, even though we are. Second portion to that question, there's no such thing as coerced empathy. So you're right, conservatives, Christians do give more, a whole lot more. Certainly unlike Barack Obama or Joe Biden gave less than 1%. These people are millionaires to charity. There's a great book called Who Really Cares by, I think it's Arthur Brooks. They give a lot more personally. We just don't believe that there's anything charitable about spending someone else's money.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the charity issue, and that's interesting to me because in the interest of trying to find the bridge and the commonality, which is essentially why I'm here, is to listen. I'm reaching out on my Twitter, and I'm trying to reach out to like really true Trump supporters and hear things and listen, because what I'm hearing is they don't want to hear from me. They have a knee-jerk reaction to me and call me a name. And what I'm hearing is they feel the same way about liberals. So I'm just like, all right, maybe there's some work to be done here and just listening, Yeah. One of the things I'm trying to do right now is build charitable campaigns for very simple bipartisan causes that everybody can get behind. Right. And even that is proving somewhat difficult at times.
I know.
So what you see, and since you're kind of like steeped in your world, what are the things, if I'm like, hey guys, I have all these Twitter followers who like will dollar for dollar match me when I run campaigns. Sure, so occasionally I'll be like, I'm putting up the first 10 grand, you guys match me. What are the things that you see that are really important issues that you think could cross the divide that liberals would see too, that we could go in on together and create, that 2% commonality, gets us some bipartisan change that might create some goodwill.
Now, do you mean just as charities, or basically pushing for some policies that we could all agree with?
Both. It's as broad as like, look, I know when I reach out to conservatives, they tell me things like, I need to know that it's like 100% efficient. That's always tricky. You never really know if they're efficient. Efficiency is really, really important. It being tied to policy so that it's, handing out fishing poles instead of fish. Liberals agree with that too. Don't just like give money and stall the well and let the clean water run, Right. So, but I'm trying to really dig at these things, because my goal is like, you and I can sit here and argue all day long and spout facts at each other about why we're right, and that will just be like everybody else. Sure. I'm gonna try to say, let's forget that for a second, and let's join up on something and let's build something. Sure. And just thank God I make a little bit of money on TV shows and use some of that capital to try and build something. Yeah, well, I think it's a great question. Actually, Dave Rubin is another guy who you might want to pay attention to. He's he was formerly with the Young Turks. He's a gay centrist who is now becoming more and more right-wing just because he doesn't believe the left has any place for someone like him anymore. I think privately that's easy, right? You can get everyone on board with, building wells for clean water in third world countries. But as far as policy, I think that's really the question, because that gets a little more complex. Here's one that I think... You're saying it's more of a policy interest is what you're seeing overall? Or? No, I'm saying it's easy to find where conservatives and liberals, if you start a charity, like let's give shoes to people who don't have shoes, you'll get all sorts of conservatives and liberals. I think if you're talking about finding common ground... I challenge you on that. I get a lot, and granted, look, Twitter is the worst platform possible, but I get a lot of, hey, fuck you, buddy. How dare you try to ask me for my hard-earned money to give it to these people who I don't have any clue about whether they're in this position because of what they did to themselves or whether they're a victim of society, and they don't want to give unless they have empirical proof that this person is totally a victim of society and there's no sympathy otherwise. So I get major kickback. Well, I think if you're talking about that 2% commonality, I think you're talking about a very fringe, small percentage of Twitter. So let's have to kind of put them aside to unpack it. My point is, I think you'll get everyone who wants, to improve fellow Americans or other non-Americans' lives through charity. I mean, you find that in every church across the country. They don't just do church bake sales. They send missionaries. We have people here who've gone on mission trips. Things like that. To Zambia. I mean, you name it in this room. As far as policy-wise, I think that's more difficult, but I do think there are some things where we can find some common ground. I think one, honestly, is school vouchers, school choice. If we're going to be funding a public education system, and it could be me totally ignorant. I've had policy experts who cannot give me an argument. I don't understand how anyone could be opposed to the idea of attaching our current funding to the student as opposed to a mandatory school board. That seems like something that, and I know because Betsy DeVos shouldn't be in that position, and I don't think she's super qualified. People throw the baby out with the bathwater, but let's say we're spending $10,000 per student right now. They have to go to a crappy public school that doesn't work. I don't know any argument, and I would like to see the right and left come together where we say, you know what, let's just attach that to the student as a grant and allow him to take it any school to which he can travel, period. I think that's something we could all come together on. Yeah, I mean, one of the initiatives that I run is quite simply, most places you can hire a TA for a dedicated arts program for any public school, and it's about $11,000 a semester because you're not dealing with a lot of the bureaucratic red tape because they're actually just like a TA. Right. And so to your point of education and children, I find that that is where I find the most commonality from a just 30,000 foot view of liberals and conservatives. Everybody, I see the eyes lock and I see, oh, these are kids, so they're clearly not responsible for their own situation they're in, so we can all get behind them and help them, and that's a cause that I'm very interested in trying to track. Sure. But it is tricky. I get surprisingly more pushback as I try to launch this initiative than I thought I would. So, well, I would love to see what it is and see where we can take part. I mean, my thing is, this is kind of what we're talking about, on the bigger picture. Let me ask you a question. Is it possible, for example, for someone out there who's a Trump supporter,
let's say, supports Donald Trump, voted for them, they're enthusiastic, supports a wall, supports immigration policy that's strict right now, and is not a racist. Can we allow room for that?
It's a tricky and a loaded question. I would say the economic policies and some of the basic things that follow conservative party lines, for sure, that doesn't have anything to do with racism. It gets a little more nuanced for me. And this question that you bring up of baby with the bathwater, like, I want to secure my borders. I do not want terrorists coming in here to harm my children.
Sorry, that's my big dog. He's just yelling.
Yeah. He's like, God, get this libtard off the show.
No, not at all. I appreciate having you on. I hope to have you back. Someone is outside the studio, and he's our guard dog. Sorry.
But that is hard for me to understand. How many really good people who have good intentions and need our help coming into the country get kept out with such a stringent policy. And it's not like we didn't have any security going on before. So it's not as simple as, oh, they're clearly a racist. Sometimes it's as simple as, my first priority is to protect myself, and I am frightened. And if this by chance keeps out some people that I don't really know that well and I don't really understand because they're kind of far from me and not in my community, so be it. I don't think that they're actively thinking, get them out, I hate them.
Right.
But there's a little bit of a secondary effect to that gives me pause, and it's inherently unchristian to me, and it bothers me.
Respectfully, if I could say, I think you have a bit of a blind spot there. And let me clarify why I think that is. Someone who I was describing exactly was my mother, who did not speak a word of English when she came here, worked a very skilled trade, has come here, has learned the language, French-Canadian immigrant, is very proud now to be an American, and she is the biggest advocate for legal immigration and a national language that you will ever meet, a language that she didn't know and she had to learn. And that's because she came here for opportunity that wasn't available in socialist province like Quebec. Cannot say anyone who comes from socialist countries, despite what people like Bernie Sanders will tell us, they're horrible hellholes as far as ambitions and dreams and opportunity. And she doesn't say, I want to protect myself. She would love for her family to be able to come here as well if they had an interest in doing so. But she wants to preserve exactly the beacon that she followed to the United States. And she sees the direction of immigration, certainly before President Trump, as one that could tear at the fabrics of that. So it has nothing to do with her own personal interest, has her wanting the United States of America that she sought out to still be the United States of America. And I think that's most people who support immigration policy.
This, and again, maybe I'm uneducated, but like, what about when you're in a place of crisis like Syria? You've been living in a camp for 3 years. You're, escaping an area that's oppressive, and you're a father who's got 5 daughters, and you are, trying to get here to a place that is safe, and you are being shut out. And there are people here who are willing to help you land, and the work ethic is there. And I'm ready. I'm here. I'm ready to say, I'm ready to donate that first $8,000 to $10,000. That's like a $2,200 minivan that barely gets by so you can get your kids to school, and English training for your girls so they can be integrated, and new job training for you dads. Get into the hospitality industry, and we want to make you citizens, be the land of opportunity. I don't want to shut them out, man. I want them here, and I want to support, and I'm willing to, quote unquote, tax myself, or whatever you want to call it, and take some of the money I'm making to help support that.
Well, let me challenge you there if I can, because you're a pretty wealthy guy. I'm not saying you're rich, but you're
Soup's rich, yo. I'm Soup's rich.
Okay, so you're pretty wealthy. Okay, so I just don't want to. So you're pretty wealthy though. You've done well.
From a middle-class household, I have disposable income. I give away close to 10 to 20% of what I make in a year. So, and I'm lucky, but really lucky.
Here's my point there, and I would challenge you on this. Because you're wealthy, would we both agree, and as someone who does pretty well myself, and a lot of our employees now do pretty well.
Dude, now we're going to get into an argument because I'm totally fucking richer than you.
Okay, yes, you are. You are. There's no doubt about that.
This is where we're going to the Mets.
This is doing the Donald Trump thing. I am so rich. You can't even imagine. Could we both agree, though, that once you're wealthy, it's a lot easier to contribute financially than, say, time? Time is a more precious currency for someone like you and I. I know you work like crazy. The output from you is unbelievable. So here would be my question. You're willing to fund a van, right? Are you willing to bring these people personally into your house and house them?
I cannot fit them in my home.
You just said you're super rich. I assume you have like golden shark tanks.
Dude. silver. Okay.
Okay, all right.
Basic cable show.
That's a smarter investment to hedge against inflation. I'll give it to you.
Silver. Okay. I mean, it's an interesting question, and it puts me on a spot. But I honestly don't understand the pertinence of the question.
Okay,
what does
here's
that
why.
have to do with
Here's
whether
why.
I personally host them or whether I am funding the program and there are people in place to help get them set, and I'm not doing it myself?
Here's why.
Honestly, what's the difference in net effect for them?
Yeah, here's why, and track with me here, and let me know if you don't understand it. Because the idea, again, you have a lot of money comparatively to most Americans. That's relatively easy for you to do, to fund.
Yes.
That's the same idea of the federal government funding. Now, when you are dealing statistically, mostly with middle-aged, perfect soldier-aged men who are coming over, these aren't mostly women and children. These are mostly middle-aged men coming over. And when you look at the countries like Sweden, like Germany, that have harbored these refugees, you look at the skyrocketing rape rates, the skyrocketing murder rates, which is undeniable. Now, even the Swedish integration ministers that say this is a real problem. The people who don't have a ton of money, so the distance off we're giving away money, have to live with this in their neighborhoods, have to live with the security risks.
And they're driven to these things, and it creates crime and all
so
those things.
I'm saying a parallel. It's really easy for people like us to say, we'll fund it, but there are a lot of people saying, you know what, you can fund it, but we have to live with it. And every country thus far that's done it has gone the other way and rejected it.
But I'm funding a family of 5, and they're super sweet, and there's a program in place that's there to guide them. And I don't want an immigration policy that keeps them out. And hopefully we can have something more nuanced that doesn't just empirically shut them out. I believe that there's room for nuance.
Well, there's plenty of room for
naive.
nuance. We're talking about 6 war-torn countries where people have come. There's the reason these countries are on the list. It is pretty nuanced, and it doesn't apply to people with work visas. So it really isn't nearly as bad as people have made it out to be. It specifically targets countries where people have from where people have immigrated and caused great problems. And there have been great transgressions wherever they've immigrated. And so Americans are now saying what retroactively Swedes, Germans, the Finnish are saying with, God, we wish we didn't do this because it didn't work out. And again, I think they can say, you know what? Yeah, let's take the skilled immigration from Uganda, from Korea, from China. No problem. Just not the places where statistically they've brought a lot of rape and blowing stuff up with them. And I don't think that means they're racist. They're discriminatory in that they want to protect their country.
Yeah. I mean, look, you make a very intelligent argument, and I totally hear you. You know, my opinion is that this policy feels a little more stringent than it needs to be.
Sure.
And if it's going to keep out this family and this opportunity that has placement, and you can say it's easy for me to throw money at them, but I don't have to live with them, I would be more than happy to live with these people in my community, because I've Skyped with them and I've talked to them, and their work ethic is there. It's it's the conservatives' wet dream, man. They're everything. They're coming here for the random opportunity. They are ready to work. They have been put upon. They are bootstrappers. The guy's going to do 16-hour days. It's everything you want.
Right.
And look, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, because the truth is, I understand that argument. And these, what you and I are talking about right now, are pretty standard liberal conservative arguments that have gone on for years. It's a healthy debate. People are going to learn. These differences are always going to be there. What I'm troubled by, and why I'm coming a little more forward now, is this escalation and this gridlock that's happened, and an utter lack of grace, patience, and listening when it comes to bipartisan communication. And it bothers the shit out of me, and I'm trying to figure out ways to cross that divide. And the only thing I can think to do right now is to come with an open heart, try to admit my ignorance politically when I don't have it, and just say, I don't know, I haven't read that much, because trying to do what I can and catch up. And so show me your side. And then at the same time, I'm trying to believe that, you know, and again, call it that this might be my own agenda and trying to put my own agenda on someone, but I'm trying to believe that the spirit of charity, and particular charities that are dealing with people that don't exactly look and feel like the people in America who have voted for Trump and have felt like they have been marginalized and forgotten for other people that don't look and feel like them, that if we can come together on that little sliver of a bridge, yeah, I don't know. That's like
no. And listen, man, and I
I
think you're doing it. I hope you don't. I hope you don't think that I've come across as harsh at all. I've tried to. I think this has been a very respectful back and forth conversation.
It's been great. Yeah.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure. I never want anyone to feel like they're sandbagged. I just think I do think when we talk about that, you might have a little bit of a blind spot, and I would say more so than people in this room. And the reason for that is, think about it. I mean, I was raised in a socialist province. I've worked in the entertainment industry my whole life. Lived out of an 82 Datsun in LA. Anyone who's gone to college, anyone who is raised in public schools, goes to college and works in media or the entertainment industry is surrounded by 99% the exact same view. And so
100%.
100% maybe even. And by the way, you're an anomaly because most people, I think, we could hopefully probably agree, the left certainly today is far less tolerant of differing viewpoints. I mean, you see it
I would say the same thing about the right now. Honestly, I would agree that the tolerance level is...
You can't find any leftist show, not a single one, who will have this conversation. It doesn't exist anymore. And they won't come on this show. And they'll say, don't go on Crowder's show. He's clearly a racist, a Nazi, a bigot. And you can watch the show. It's not the case. We don't do that with political opposition. The left has become so intolerant of different points of view. If you want to find common ground, if you want to see people, like I said, kind of come together on that bridge.
I have to disagree with you that the right is much more tolerant than the left of different points of view.
Far more.
But then again, I'm a person who is on Twitter espousing I mean, if you look at my Twitter feed, when I come out gently and I say, I am genuinely interested to figure out what is going on, the amount of vitriol, and again, it's Twitter, and I understand that, but it's not dissimilar to what's coming from the left. I would agree with you and totally concede that we're 50-50 gridlocked.
Well,
but
gridlock.
There is less tolerance on the left. I don't feel that.
I do think so, because there's only one side today, if we agree, only one side of the political spectrum fighting for free speech and one side fighting for less individual rights. The platform today, the Democratic platform, is less freedom. For the first time, and I hope that you really zone in here, this is the first time in modern American history where any major American political platform, today's modern progressive left, are fighting and protesting for less rights, for less freedom of speech, for less voices at the table, for less individual opportunity. They're the only place now that defends freedom of speech is the right. And that's one thing that I will concede zero ground, because we've made it a cornerstone of this program. And I understand, listen, Twitter is a horrible place. I mean, I've had to work with the FBI Counterterrorism Online Crime Unit because of statements I've made regarding Islam. So everything has had to be completely unlisted and secure. And that's very different from an egg saying, you filthy Jew, which I get all the time despite not being Jewish. So I understand where you're coming from. But there's a huge difference in one side trying to silence free speech right now, and that is not as a matter of policy anywhere on the right-wing platform.
Well, look, I'm not going to argue you all day long about whether one side is 50-50 or 40-60, and I will respectfully disagree that there is much more tolerance coming from the right for liberal attitudes. But what I will 100% agree with you and concede is that there is gridlock here. I would like to see more right-wing people showing up on leftist talk shows and leftist podcasts. If you're not seeing that, that's a really good thing to challenge, and you should challenge more. Sure. My goal is to honestly, like, I'm not really almost here to debate as much as I am to listen and hear things. And I would like to see a lot more of that. And I think that if I could just say anything to your, followers before I go, I would just say that if you can, try not to listen to any vitriolic, how do I say this best?
Dickishness?
No, I would just say that a lot of the incendiary stuff that you're hearing from the left is fear-based, and there are a lot of people who are afraid of this regime. And I think they have right to be afraid, and we can argue that till the cows come home. But I think there are some people in there who have shown that there is some racist behavior, and I think that we're not going to call everybody racist. And there is some misogynist behavior, though we're not going to call everybody misogynist.
Sure.
And I would just say there are a lot more people who are confused, a little scared. But when I told people I was coming on this podcast, they were like, That's fucking awesome. I would totally do that. So I'm going to recommend my friends to come here.
Absolutely.
If you can try to open yourself and try to not make the first knee-jerk reaction, fuck you, libtard, and just take that one step of grace. Sure. I swear to God, it's going to work. Because I've done it even on Twitter, which is the most horrible form possible.
It is terrible.
Wonderful, graceful conversations on Twitter, and it works if you just stop that knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, and if you don't pay attention to the people who are just looking to get a rise out of someone.
Absolutely.
And I readily admit, listen, we do
show up on my timeline, and I get that.
Yes, and we readily do things that are incendiary, that are offensive, to prove a point, though we never actually go up to simply hurt somebody's feelings. But we're in an era where everyone's feelings are hurt by something. But we do try and conduct the interviews with people with a different point of view this way. Sometimes they get more heated, particularly when people come in guns blazing. I would love to continue this conversation another time, and if we do find something that we could both be on board with to support policy-wise, absolutely, and make it public so that people can see it as an example. I am not beyond that at all. And certainly anyone who's watching this right now, at Mark Duplass, please do be respectful if you disagree with him. I'd like to think our audience is generally more mature. You'll get a few people who don't like you, but they tend to be better.
I got a thick skin. I don't really give a shit at the end of the day, but I appreciate that.
Well, the fact that a lesbian Jew like Sally Cohn has come back several times tells me that, all right, maybe people aren't too brutal as they are. Like the YouTube comment section is where dreams go to die. That's even worse than Twitter. It's like, it's just terrible.
Two things before I go. Have you been tracking this Van Jones' sort of 50-50 prison reform stuff? Have you looked at that at all?
Well, I know it's been a big cause of his for a long time. Lately, Van Jones has only been in headlines because, again, he had the gall to say, hey, Donald Trump sounded presidential, and now they're calling for his resignation at CNN. So if there's something recent outside of that, I haven't followed it.
Well, he's got a big bipartisan issue going on, and it's basically, if you're looking for that thing that's policy oriented, that's like, what do we both agree on? It's like, oh, the prison system is really, really screwed up, and like this has had since the war on drugs, there's like a really big problem here with black males, and everybody's behind it. And so that's a really interesting thing on the policy front. And then the last question I have for you is, if I was going to go back to, my super Hollywood liberal bubble, like the most loud, angry people in the world right now, and you tell them something through me, because they probably won't listen to you, but they will listen to me.
Right.
What is the message that I can send that makes them, I don't know, that you just want them to hear?
Well, you know what? First off, I really appreciate that you've even asked that question. And I will say you are a very rare breed in today's leftist sphere. It sounds like you know that because you're saying they won't even listen to me. Same thing with leftist shows. It's very, very rare that we'll be able to go on there, but we invite
I don't want to turn on Fox News right now, and I think that it's because of this gridlock. But people are starting
Neither do I.
And people are realizing that we're going to have to open up and listen, and it's starting. I really believe that. The tide is starting.
Well,
I'm just curious on that front.
I think here's the thing. I don't have a problem with gridlock. Our system was designed for gridlock, meaning that, as a matter of fact, the way the government grows the least, people who don't know this, is a Democratic president with a Republican House and Senate. That's actually the way to keep government expansion in check the most, historically. We saw that under Bill Clinton.
Isn't that its own version of gridlock?
It is its own version of gridlock. And that's what I'm saying. That's actually not a bad thing. I think the polarization as to what you're talking about more so the personal vilification and people not being willing to listen. I think it goes back to the direct quote with President Obama when he said he came in, it was very different. As much as we don't like George W. Bush, the guy was a unifier after 9/11, and he actually was close friends with a lot of liberals. He reached across the aisle. Barack Obama came in and said, Republicans, you're going to have to get to the back of the line. And that was a big FU. And people said, okay, that's how it's going to be. And since then, it's been both the left and the right sort of following that line of thought. To answer your question, as far as going back to Hollywood, sort of the most loud, angry people,
should I tell my friends?
Tell them, here's what I would say. Even present them the question that I did. Listen, you have to allow room for someone who may disagree with you on every political issue, even the ones that you think are racially charged or somehow gender charged, and allow for room that they might just have a different idea on policy or how to fix the problem. And if they do that, for example, I don't think that liberals hate kids and don't want them educated when they want to put them into a failing public school system. I think they believe that throwing more money at a failed system will help. I just ask that they say to me, hey, you know what? I don't think you hate all poor kids and you hate kids being educated. I think that you see a failing system and you believe there's a different solution. If we just allow for the possibility on every issue.
About intention. You want
don't attribute motive.
The intentions are good. And even a guy like Jeff Sessions, who has had like these racists, would you say that he is a racist or no?
I don't believe he's a racist if you look at how much he's done, and he got an NAACP award. So I believe he's done some things that are bad. And I believe that he's done some things that are very, very good. I believe he's done some things that are tremendous for African Americans or people of color, whatever term now is the least offensive. Sorry. And I think you have to look at the totality of the man's character. So I don't think because someone said, what was it with Paula Deen? Have you ever used the N-word in the last 10 years in a deposition? I don't know about you. I'm guilty every time I sing along to Kanye's College Dropout.
That's a different context.
Doesn't matter. The question was, have you ever used it? Ever used it was the question in the deposition. The same thing in the OJ trial. So my point is, we can't just take one thing someone did or one thing someone said and say they're a racist. Do I have reason to believe that Jeff Sessions personally has disdain for people based on their race? No, I have no evidence of that.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I leave the right that I could be wrong. But I mean, again, the NAACP, is it the NAACP? I think it could be the NAACP. Maybe it was another African-American organization that gave him an award.
There's a quote from him in 1985 saying something that's pretty brutal. And, you could say, oh, that was 35 years ago. And and that's a justifiable argument. The only reason I ask that is that, it's a different thing when you go back to, an African-American woman and you say, like, I really need you to assume that Jeff Sessions has your best interests at heart and assume his intentions are good for you when there's that empirical proof of him saying something incredibly denigrating to her race. And that's a tough pill to swallow. I hear your point. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just letting you know.
But would you do the same thing with Robert Byrd and that same black woman?
I don't know who Robert Byrd is.
Okay, Robert Byrd, if a plane went down, he was fourth in line for Barack Obama's presidency. And was repeatedly, he wasn't just Klan dabbling, he was Klan dental.
Was his position?
So if you have vice president, was he president pro tempore of the Senate?
I thought it was Secretary of State. I love that we
Secretary
don't know
of State. No, basically, but yeah, fourth after President, Secretary of State, then President pro tempore is the next in line for the presidency. So at that point, I believe at this point in time, if a plane goes down with Biden, Obama, and Pelosi, boom, Robert Byrd's your president. Robert Byrd filibustered the Civil Rights Act. Of course, as the Democrats did back then. They were widely opposed to civil rights. Robert Byrd was a top-ranking recruiter for the Klan. And then, as recently as I believe 2001 or 2004, repeatedly used the term white nigger on air on Fox News in an interview. So they were constantly saying up until the 2000s, and Hillary Clinton said he's an example, he's reformed, he's no longer the same, and then he said that after that, and he was still welcome. Far worse than anything Jeff Sessions has done. Repeatedly said he would never serve in the military with Negroes, and I use that word to punctuate. You can Google Robert Byrd, white N-word, and you will hear him saying it repeatedly, relatively recently in history. And that's my point. It's the politicization, the political football. So do I have evidence to say this person is a racist? Yeah. With him, I certainly think he was. With Jeff Sessions, maybe he was. Do I believe he is now? I don't have proof to believe that he personally harbors ill will toward African Americans now. But let's remove Jeff Sessions from the table. I would still say you don't even need to say to someone they have your best interest at heart. Just can we allow for the possibility that they believe in a different solution to the problem? As long as we allow that possibility, the conversation can occur.
Yeah, I think anybody would allow that. I think that it flares up when we get to the details of that of what that solution is. That's where it becomes problematic. But again, in my opinion, that's kind of more age-old stuff. That's kind of like, you know what? Yes, this is conservatives and liberals fighting, and like I'm okay with that. Like we can get back to that place. That's like a normal level of just like, yeah, parents and teenagers fight. I'm trying to like curb this like super incendiary stuff that's just like, wow, we can't even speak to each other. People can't go to Thanksgiving. They're walking out on Christmas dinner. Like this feels unprecedented to me, and it's a fucking bummer, So,
I think it's bad. I think it's bad. And I agree with you there. I do think to put it, and then we can maybe leave it in this perspective, right? I think racism is a horrible thing. I think actually believing that you are superior solely based on your race is probably one of the most poisonous ideological worldviews I can think of. I can't say it's the worst act, like the worst act would be the Holocaust, but I think as far as a worldview, racism is really, really bad, right? And for someone to be a racist is a real problem, one of the worst things they can be. But do you know one of the worst things you can do to actually ruin someone else's life is call them a racist. And you don't need any proof. And that happened for 8 years under the previous administration, and we saw people lose their jobs, and we saw people lose respect because everyone who opposed that president was simply, they're a racist. Whether it's Janine Garofalo or Morgan Freeman, a socialist is code for the N-word. And they were constantly painted as racist. So now people are saying, oh my God, we might have a racist in the cabinet or whoever it might be. We don't necessarily need to name names. But just as bad, just as life-ruining for someone to act on racism is to simply throw out the accusation of racism. And I think you're seeing some pendulum swinging there. And I hope people in the entertainment industry are aware that this is a big monster that they played a large part in creating. And hopefully now we can learn from it and say, gosh, we got really drunk at that party and we need to come back to some common basic principles. But it doesn't seem like that's going to happen anywhere in the near future, looking at these marches and riots.
Yeah, well, on the same side of the coin, I would just say, I would hope that everyone who is in the Trump regime right now, and I would hope that everyone who vehemently supports them with their heart can understand that some of these principles and the way that these messages are coming across are instilling a lot of fear in the hearts of people who are feeling marginalized and untaken care of, and that there may be a reason why they're behaving this way. And hopefully we can have some conversations and create some bridges and find a way, because
I think you should start. I would start a march with you, a rally with you, because we went to the Women's March. We went to the march yesterday, and when it was Pussy Hat Economics and pissing on Donald Trump and effigy, and yesterday when we went to the Ladies' March, it was Comrade, and it was socialism, and women have built the society, and down with patriarchy. I tell you what, we felt a little bit afraid. We felt a little bit afraid there. So if there could actually be one reasonable march, one reasonable rally from the left, I will join you and personally speak there and take part in helping to make that happen.
My argument is that it's going to be a game of inches. It's going to have to come. I'm going to get my framing right on the computer. There it is. It's going to have to be this.
You're the filmmaker. You got these. You know which lens sizes to go with. So, listen, thank you. And by the way, for people who are watching, the movie Creep, if you haven't watched it, messed me up. One of my favorite thrillers in modern memory. And Mark Duplass.
Please call me a snowflake, libtard, and watch Creep and see what I will do to you.
Yes, exactly. Oh, the wolf mask image will never be out of my head. Mr. Duplass, thank you very much. And I would love to have you back, and I hope this conversation was productive.
I really appreciate it. And you're obviously very well studied, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate, more than anything, nice, calm, graceful conversation with a lot of interrupting and some listening. So here's to more.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure for me because genuinely I've been a longtime fan. Mark Duplass, everybody, will be back with, Georges St. Pierre after this. That's right.
There are white niggers. I've seen a lot of white niggers in my time.
Whether preparing supper or tidying up the mess afterward, the homemaker finds meaning and purpose in her kitchen. Almost exclusively. But where does she find all that energy? How do her dainty fingers hold up against such grueling manual labor? Yes, that's right, the Ladder with Crowder Mug Club, scientifically proven to make even the most mundane and trivial of tasks 78% more enjoyable. Hubby has no tolerance for frowny faces. For only $99 annually, $69 for students, veterans, or active military, you too can toil with a smile. LadderWithCrowder.com/Mug Club. Join now for daily Ladder with Crowder content and to avoid a fat lip for you.
And now time for Dr. Rand Paul bitches about everything.
Well, as it relates now to Trump care, as it's called, some people are trying to label it Republican care. And I don't know which Republicans were consulted, but not me. Looking at this bill, I think that it's worse than Obamacare because it keeps the worst elements, and some people think that scaling back is a better step than not doing anything. But those people certainly are not me. And I also think that Republicans should think very long and hard about their voting constituency who wanted to see a full repeal and replacement with this bill. And I think that many of them right now are making a mistake in supporting this bill and standing with Paul Ryan on this platform, but not me.
I still like the man, but damn it, Dr. Rand Paul bitches about everything. Stay tuned.
All right, very suiting. That was the Street Fighter theme song because our next guest. Let me give our next guest an introduction. The term is thrown around, greatest fighter of all time. It's lost all meaning. Granted, I'm biased because I'm from Montreal. Hint, that's foreshadowing. Let me give you this guy's pedigree. Most wins in title bouts ever, 12. Second longest combined title streak with 9. Second most wins in UF history, 19. Multiple times Fighter of the Year, multiple times Canadian Athlete of the Year, Comeback of the Year, biggest box office draw. I believe the greatest fighter to have walked God's green earth. Georges St. Pierre, thank you for being with us, sir.
Thank you very much to having me.
Oh yeah, I know, and I know that you're not one to take the accolades in stride. You're very humble. Hey, let me ask you right out of the gate, who would you say, if you I know you'll never say yourself, the best fighters of all time? Like if you have to give two, who would you say?
The one that has done something that have never been done before for his time. I think the greatest of all time for me, it's Royce Gracie.
Okay, because it was so revolutionary. Yeah, and I remember. It's funny. You were raised. Where were you raised in Montreal? I was Rive Sud in the South Shore. Were you? Where were you?
I'm from South Shore too. I'm from countryside, called a place called Saint-Isidore. It's a little town of 3,000 people, and I had to live in the city of Montreal. Because of the training and study and stuff, after that. So I live in Montreal. It's been like maybe 8 years. I live in the city of Montreal now.
Okay. Well, I asked that because I remember watching Royce Gracie when I was a kid. I was bullied a lot as a kid. And my dad said, hey, there's this new UFC going on. There's this little guy, Royce Gracie, who's beating all these muscle men. And he allowed us to watch it, but it was VHS, right? So we could fast forward the really violent stuff. And so when we were kids, we had a community center on Longueuil, le Centre, I think, Community, whatever they called it. And there was a guy down there who would make up his own martial arts, like Aikikai Jitsudo, right? And at this point, there was no one to train with. And so my dad said, well, you're going to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because I saw the UFC. So he took us down. The community center had a sign up for Jiu-Jitsu. We showed up, and it was the same guy. He did not know anything about Jiu-Jitsu. He tried to sell us Chinese slippers. And I was saying, oh, my gosh, it doesn't exist in Montreal. So, and back then, when you started, where did you learn to train? Where did you start? Because there was not a lot in Montreal.
There were, but they came later.
Right.
There were my first jiu-jitsu instructor was Wagner Fabiano.
Sure.
He's from Brazil. Then after I went with Christophe Midou, a guy from France that learned from Rickson Gracie himself. And also after that I learned in New York.
Right.
I kept doing it in New York City at Henzo Gracie Academy School. Under John Benar.
That's right. I remember him talking about the story of you just driving out there, finding a place to sleep and getting it done. The work ethic is incredible. Listen, kind of touching on that, I was bullied as a kid. You've said that being bullied as a kid really shaped you as a fighter. So people know that. But I want to ask, is that sort of a big reason why you've probably been the most outspoken person against, PEDs in combat sports? Do you see that as sort of, as an adult, as someone who stood up against bullying as a kid, it's a way for you to do it today?
Not really. The way I see it is, let's say we both agree on fighting each other with bare hand, no weapon.
Right.
And it would be the same thing if I would hide a knife behind my back, and in the middle of the fight, I will try to stab you. Right. For me, it's the same thing. Performance enhancing drug, it's like a weapon. It's a biological weapon.
Yeah.
And it should be banned. Of course, it should have been banned a long time ago, and the system should have been in place a long time ago to have make this thing vanish out of our sport, because we don't play game. When we fight, we cannot say we play. You know, you play basketball, you play hockey, you play football, but you cannot play fighting. So every time you're going to fight, you put your life on the line, and it's very dangerous.
Well, certainly not with what you do. With what my producer, Nake Jer, does. He play fights at Adonis Bar every Saturday night, but that's an entirely different issue. Let me ask you, in Montreal, you probably remember Adonis. As you move forward here, do you expect to feel a difference in your opponents with the changes? Because looking back, it's almost like you were Nostradamus. You said, I know people. I won't name names, but it's well known that they're on performance-enhancing drugs. And since then, you know, obviously like Anderson Silva, some huge names, people who have popped. Since then, I mean, obviously Johnny Hendricks hasn't been able to make weight, had to move up to middleweight out of necessity. Do you expect in your fights to feel a difference in some of your opponents? Do you think some of them under USADA could be very different?
Yeah, of course. A lot of guys, you know, I knew a lot of guys was on it. I had an idea of who were or who were not, but I'm not a snitch. And I didn't want to attack an individual. I wanted to attack the system, because if you attack one person, you take him out of the equation, another one will come and do the same thing. So I wanted to change the system, because the system was allowing it.
Sure.
In a way. That's why there was a lot of people that was cheating. It still have a lot of people cheating nowadays, but it's much better than it was back in the day.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I can imagine that would be really frustrating for you back then, where people are saying, oh, fight this person, fight that person. And if you know sometimes, and you don't want to be a snitch, but you know, listen, this isn't fair, people who aren't in the sport can't know that. And I think especially now, looking at the legacy at the UFC, considering that you're really probably one of the only high-profile, long-reigning champions who didn't have any run-ins with that. This is just me being a fangirl, of course, saying, you know, I would put you as best fighter of all time. Let me ask you about this. You had a long hiatus, and now you've had double knee surgeries. I've had knee surgery myself. My knee's not the same, but I had other problems with my kneecap. Do you think that you are better than you were before, not only technically, because you've had time, but athletically? Do you feel back 100% as you come back to fight?
No, I do feel better than I feel physically better than ever. My knees are 100%. I had the best surgeon in the world that did the surgery on me. I did the best rehab as possible. So I really put all on my side. You know, I didn't want to have any issues of coming back, and I wanted to be back 100%. And even now, I feel like I used to have like problem with range of motion in my shoulder since I'm young. Even now, I get better. It is possible at 30 years old and up to get better, and it is, and I'm the proof of that.
Yeah, for sure. And where did you do that? Did you do that in the States, or did you do it in Montreal?
I did my surgery in the United States by Dr. Ella Trash in Los Angeles, Curlin and Job Hospital, and I did my rehab there too. But I gained a lot of knowledge. I read a lot of books too, so I've learned. When I was doing it, I was like learning at the same time, and now I can take that knowledge and keep it for myself and help the guys that need it, also in Montreal.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's a big help, because obviously for the reasons, you know, you went to Los Angeles, the medical innovations tend to be at the cutting edge in the States, and some Canadian athletes, depending where they are in the country, you know, don't have access to that. So at least bringing the knowledge back with you, I mean, that's got to be a huge help to your team at TriStar, I'd imagine.
Yeah, knowledge is very important. It's one of the things in this game that makes the difference between a win and a loss. And it's a little bit like warfare. For example, Genghis Khan has dominated the world because of a bow and arrow and horses. You know,
right.
He had knowledge at the time that nobody has.
Right.
The Romans, same thing. The United States, Second World War, the atomic bomb. So knowledge, like in warfare, it's the same thing in fighting. Royce Gracie has dominated the game at this time because he had knowledge of the ground fighting. Nobody knew what was ground fighting. Everybody thought it was like in the movies, standing up and punching each other. Nobody knew what was going on. I remember the people that was doing that was describing the fight, they didn't even know themselves what was going on.
I know,
like, he's grabbing his head with his leg. Oh, wait a second, he's tapping. I'm like people were like, nobody knew because he had a weapon that nobody. Right. He had knowledge that nobody had at the time, and that's why he was so successful. So it's all about knowledge. A lot of it in the game of the art of war. It's about knowledge. The person who has the most knowledge is the one who's gonna win. It's not about fighting. Is not about who got the biggest balls, who's talking, who's making the more noise. That's what the promotion is based on.
Right.
It's about the knowledge, a lot of it.
Well, you're giving hope to my producer here, Jared. But what if someone has no balls and he's also stupid, like Jared? Is he just out of luck?
Well, he's pretty. Well, he needs to get somewhere else.
I don't know. He'll just have to go crazy. Jared, just take some PCP and go nuts. That's I saw some guy do that once on real TV. Hey, since you're talking about knowledge, let me ask you this, George. And I know you can't reveal it. You're a very cerebral fighter, and I've always said, a lot of people, listen, they'll chalk it up and say, well, George St. Pierre is this freak athlete. I've never seen an athlete like him. And you're a very athletic guy. But what's kept you at the top for so long, it's not chance, I believe, is your cerebral approach to fighting. So have you already created, this is the biggest comeback really in modern sports history that I can think of. Do you already have a game plan in mind for Michael Bisping?
Yeah, he's gonna have the size advantage on me.
Sure.
The size, the height, inertia, everything that come with size and the advantage, everything that come with that, he's gonna have the physical aspect of the advantage of it. But I do believe I'm more athletic. I believe I'm much faster than he is. I believe I have a better fighting IQ than him.
Yeah.
And I got more tools, and that's why I'm gonna win that fight.
And he's a drunk. So there's that.
Yes. Hope for him he's not gonna drink. He's not gonna drink before the fight.
I remember
that's the thing. It's okay. You drink whenever you want to drink, but he was.